Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Shawn the Baptist Live for Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. I'm not actually live. Well, I suppose I'm alive, but I'm not live in our normal weekly format because today, on Wednesday, as you are listening to this, I am headed to my annual retreat. 8 days to be alone and, well, talk with God. Otherwise, complete silence. Silent retreat, 8 days. So I meet with my director every day for about an hour and then talk with God. So pray for me while I'm away. Tonight, though, I'm bringing you a special episode of Shawn the Baptist Live, and it was actually recorded live just last night on Tuesday, where I spoke to a group called Project Chrysalis here in Kansas City. It's a group formed for adults who have had children die, often sometimes older adult children, perhaps from suicide, or even younger children, all parents or grandparents even who experienced the loss of a child. And so I worked in some previous themes that we've talked about, a little on the liturgical year, but lots of other stuff about grief and suffering and how to deal with these big kind of traumas in our life. So I hope that everyone will find this helpful. And then I'll be away next week, so there will be no Shawn the Baptist Live on Wednesday, the 3rd of February, but I will be back with you live 6:30 on February 10th. So no morning messages and no Shawn the Baptist Live, just silence for 8 days. So I invite you to pray for me and enjoy tonight's special episode of Shawn the Baptist Live with Project Chrysalis.
Father Shawn Tunick is our guest tonight. He's the associate pastor at St. Patrick's Parish in KCK. Father Shawn has been a friend for a number of years. Really pretty amazing story. How we got to know Father Shawn, who did a beautiful homily on Blaine and his story when he died. It was because of Scouts. Father Shawn is the chaplain for the Scouts for the Archdiocese, and actually was saying Mass. We had no idea he was going to do this in his homily. We're sitting there and just looking at each other in awe, but he shares the story of Blaine and a young man named Zach Shopper, who was a great young man who was also an Eagle Scout who helped Blaine. So we just invited Father Shawn on tonight because he has been an amazing priest, an amazing leader of the Scouts, and a great friend. And so, Father Shawn, thank you for being with us tonight, and we're going to let you take it away.
All right. Well, thanks, Ken. Good to be with you, with all of you. And this is my first time to talk to the Project Chrysalis group. So I'm happy to be with you. You hear me there, Ken? Everything good? Sounds good? All right. Well, very good then. Well, one of the things Ken did start to mention a little bit, the story of how he and I met, and literally, I had never met Ken or Patty before, and I am the Scout chaplain for the Archdiocese, so I'm chaplain for all the Scouts, and I was doing our annual Scout. I created a little cooking competition to kick off the year, and I remember Ken had called me up and said, our son was an Eagle Scout and died recently, and we have a little foundation, and could we set up a booth at your scouting event? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And I remember I was sitting there talking with Ken and Patty at their booth, and they were telling me the story of Blaine, how, he had had his accident and was on the side of the road, and, they have a great love for Scouts because of course, Blaine was an Eagle Scout, and they said, but the most amazing thing was that, another Eagle Scout came and was going to take care of Blaine, and what he didn't know, but would be his last moments. And actually, this Eagle Scout, he came, took care of him. He said, hey, I'm an Eagle Scout too, and it was a great honor. And I remember asking Ken at that time, boy, do you remember the name of that Scout? And he's like, oh, absolutely. His name was Zach Shopper. And Ken didn't know this, but Zach's dad, Mike Shopper, was a big member of our Catholic Committee on Scouting, who was there at the event, helping me put it on. So I looked at Ken. I said, Zach Shopper, hold on. I'm like, his dad's right over here. I'm like, have you ever met him or seen him since then? And no, we haven't seen him. We just know the name. Like, well, his dad's right over here. And Mike called up his son Zach and got him to come to the event. And so we had Zach there for the closing mass, and it was really quite the deal. And so yeah, I've known Ken and Patty ever since that. Gosh, that was early days of priesthood, Ken. So that was, I don't know, maybe 10, more than that, maybe 10, 11 years ago or something. So ever since then, I've been trying to do what I can in my ministry in the Archdiocese and in various ways. So I sometimes I do radio with Ken, which is fun. And as a result of that, Ken told me about this wonderful Project Chrysalis group that you all have. And
That was 2012, Father.
2012. Okay, I was close. I'm going to be a priest 13 years this spring. So I've been a scout 34 years. So quite a while. I'm an Eagle Scout myself. So anyway, with all, you know how scouts can get, we get talking scouts and it'll just go on forever. I'll get talking about Philmont, and I'm going to be at Philmont, New Mexico this summer, and then it's just all over, and all we'll talk about scouts. So we won't do that. But what I did thought that maybe I would do tonight a little bit is my major, I guess, focus, interest in kind of my academic study in my time has been to study the sacred liturgy, the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, the other sacraments. My advanced degree, called a Sacred Theology Licentiate, an STL, kind of like a almost doctorate in the Church, is in liturgy and sacramental theology. And so I thought there was an interesting tie-in with the way that our liturgical year is organized, and in the way that we might deal a little bit with trauma in our life, traumatic events, because we'll see that the Church's liturgical year is kind of a circle. So it's really the same two events, Christmas and Easter, and primarily Easter, that every year we circle back to. Pull this up here so you can see it. This is one of those liturgical calendar diagrams. And so if you look over to about 9 o'clock where the green meets the purple, that's the beginning of the liturgical year. So that's Advent there. That was first 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first 4 weeks of Advent. And then that little yellow area is Christmas. Then you've got a first part of Ordinary Time. Then the next purple is Lent. Those 3 red days are the Sacred Triduum of Holy Thursday to Easter Sunday evening. And then, of course, you've got another white/yellow area, and that's Easter. And then that big secondary green area, which is the second part of Ordinary Time. So you see how it's a circle. And each year, we circle back around. And so we look again at the same events, but always from a different perspective, because, you can't do the exact same experience twice. So no 2 Easters are the same, and no 2 Christmases are the same. And certainly we know that this year. Definitely Christmas 2020 will never be like any other Christmas, God willing. And Easter 2020, it was me and Father Mark in an almost empty church here at St. Pat's. So we had no people there, and we just live streamed it. So every year is different. And we kind of circle back around to the same event and see it again from a different perspective. And so we're all eventually end up with this tonight. And I might talk for about maybe half an hour. And then I understand you guys normally like to have questions. So hopefully not all the question asker people are gone tonight, but some of you are the question asker people, because I like questions. So if you got a question while I'm talking, like wave at me or something, and I'm happy to answer. But I thought that the same way that our liturgical year kind of goes around in circles around the same events, there's a little bit in which meaningful events that aren't so great, like Christmas and Easter, but traumatic events like loss of a loved one and all the anniversaries that go with that. Like, well, this was their birthday, or this was, would have been the time that we did this together, or this was the last time we did this. And, you've all kind of got that little mental calendar of dates in your head that some are more or less traumatic than others, but they come up cyclically in the calendar, and sometimes for no specific date at all. Sometimes things just come up, but particularly in the cyclical nature of our year and the fact that we repeat the same dates, I think can bring up some events. So I'd like to look a little bit about how the church uses the liturgical calendar to kind of cause us to go deeper each year into these mysteries of our faith, and maybe see how that can help us a little bit with how we deal with kind of the reoccurrence of difficult anniversaries and things in our life. So probably most of you know, and I'll just go ahead. I'm a liturgy nerd. So if this gets boring, you just, hey, Father Shawn, you're a liturgy nerd. Just stop. But for right now, I'm gonna take you through a little bit of an important aspect, I think, of a liturgical year that most people don't realize. So I said that we start with Advent. So that's that first section of purple there that's got the first, second, third, fourth week. So this is before the calendar New Year, of course. Everybody else starts their New Year on January 1st. We don't do that in the church. We start with, about November 30th, whatever Sunday is closest to that. And so that starts our new year. And so we do, in fact, start at the beginning of the story. We start with Advent, which is preparing for the coming of Jesus. Well, if you pay attention at Mass, the Sunday right before the first Sunday of Advent is the Sunday of Christ the King, which we're preparing for the coming of Jesus. So we're like, it's Christ the King Sunday. Let's prepare for Jesus to come back in glory. And yay, get ready, Jesus is coming, and the King of glory comes, the nation rejoices, open, that whole thing. That it's yay, Jesus is coming. Well, then the new year starts, and it's the first Sunday of Advent, and it's like, the King of glory comes, the nation rejoices, open the gates before him. Because Jesus is coming, and this time it's at Christmas, but it's still Jesus coming. And so, particularly the first part of Advent, we're really looking at Jesus' return in glory. So we see how, unlike the secular calendar that goes from, it's December 31st, 2020, and God, get rid of that. Something completely new starts on January 1st. And we do that, and we're like, okay, forget what just happened. Let's start over. I'm going to make New Year's resolutions. I'm going to join a gym, even though I joined that gym last year and I didn't go. I'm going to join a gym again. I'm going to start a diet. And it's just like completely new. Well, the church doesn't quite do it that way. We end with, get ready, Jesus is coming. And then we continue with, okay, get ready, Jesus is coming. But as Advent goes on, you see we start to transition to think about Jesus' first coming as well as his second coming. So Advent means coming. It's all about coming. So we get ready. But notice, and this is where it fits in to the whole circular nature of everything, we're not really getting ready for the first coming of Jesus. Okay, we're not reliving, oh gosh, let's pretend Jesus is going to come as a little baby this Christmas. No, Jesus has already come, lived, died, ascended to heaven, and is with us now in the Eucharist and reigning from heaven. So we can't back the train up. And that's a common thing that we want to do sometimes in grief and trauma. Back up and say, well, what if this and what if that? And we want to, kind of back up and redo it. It's not possible for human beings to back up in time and redo anything. We only live forward, but as I say, it's kind of a spiral that we're always moving forward, but we can kind of circle back and look at events, but we can't back up and relive them. So as we look at the coming of Jesus, we always look at his first coming in light of his second coming. So when we think of Jesus coming in Bethlehem, well, we think, all right, when Jesus came the first time, people who were supposed to be ready weren't ready. I mean, that's the whole point of the founding of the Jewish people, God's chosen people. What were they chosen to do? Prepare for the Messiah and point him out when he came, so that everyone could share in the joy of God's chosen people. To know that really all God's people, Jews and Gentiles, were meant to be chosen. So that was their mission. Prepare for the coming of the Messiah. And when he came, people missed it. because he came not as they expected. He came in poverty and humility and as a little baby and not a fierce warrior that's going to just kick the crap out of everybody and establish a political dynasty. So we should be ready at his second coming, that Jesus, we need to be ready. We are called now, like the Jews were, to prepare for the coming of Jesus. So as we look at his coming in Bethlehem, we might ask ourselves, gosh, okay, how ready am I for the coming of the Messiah? Because I can't have been there 2,000 years ago when he came the first time. But he's going to come for me, whether it's at my own death or his coming at the end of the world. This coming I can prepare for, and it's going to take place in my lifetime, either at the very last moment of my life or when Jesus returns in glory. So we can kind of think, where do we miss the comings of Jesus in our life every day? The people in Jerusalem, King Herod, for instance, and all the people with him, when in Matthew's gospel it says that the Magi, the three kings, we don't know for sure there were three of them, but they brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh, so why not? Otherwise maybe they have to fight over the gifts. So we'll go with the traditional three kings of Orient. They show up and they say, hey, the newborn king, where is he? And of course Herod and all the people in Jerusalem, it says, they're upset. They're just bewildered and they're frightened. Okay, this is Jerusalem. This is capital of Welcome Messiah Central, and they're not ready. So it kind of reminds us then, what might I be doing to miss the signs of Jesus that are present every day? And particularly if we get so wrapped up in one big event. Well, we might have a certain prayer that we're praying for. We really want God to answer our prayer, and it's one big thing. And then we miss all the little comings of Jesus all the time because of that. So one of the things that I really try to pay attention to each day is not living just for the big moments, like Christmas and Easter. And we'll kind of talk about that. But where are the little comings each day? Okay, so Advent is that season that we prepare for the coming of Jesus. Thinking about 2,000 years ago, but the only good it does to think about 2,000 years ago, in addition to give us a chance to bake Christmas cookies and watch Charlie Brown Christmas each year, and Rudolph, it gives us a chance to think about, okay, how can I get ready for Jesus' coming at the end of time, the end of my life, or especially today? So then we hit Christmas, the big first coming of Jesus. We celebrate that, and then as we just went through it, Christmas lasts, there's the octave of Christmas, so that's 8 days where we celebrate every day as Christmas. That ends on January 1st, when everyone else finally catches up and celebrates New Year. And then most people know about the 12 days of Christmas because, hey, there's a song about it, so why not? On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. And then we got, you got to repeat it over and over, and you get 12 days of Christmas. It's not just a cool song. I mean, not that it's not a cool song. It is. You got your 12 lords of leaping and pipers piping and ladies dancing, and who doesn't love a good song about pipers piping? But the real point of that is that Christmas would go up to Epiphany. So 12 days leads you the day before Epiphany, which is January 6th, which gives you the nice title of a Shakespearean play, Twelfth Night, or what you will. When you hear the phrase Twelfth Night, you're like, what the heck's Twelfth Night? Twelfth Night is the night of the 12th day of Christmas, which is the vigil of Epiphany. So there's a little cultural Shakespearean reference into our Catholic calendar. Shakespeare, probably Catholic. Look that up. Anyway, so we get to the Epiphany, and then after Epiphany, we end the Christmas season with the baptism of the Lord. Now, the season that we're in right now, and this is really kind of the spiritual point that all that liturgy nerd stuff aside, the season that we're in right now, the church in English translation, at least, calls for us the season of ordinary time. Now that's just about the worst, most blah sounding name for anything I could think of. It's like, yay, we just had Christmas, and now where are we? Ordinary time. Just ordinary. Nothing is happening. We just go through the blah of life, waiting for Easter to come. Well, that's really not it at all. In fact, as most of you probably realize, our our Mass, as we have it in English, is a translation. So we are technically Latin Catholics as opposed to Eastern Catholics. We're Latin Catholics. That means our Mass is in Latin, and it gets translated into various languages. And in Latin, the original language of the Missal, from where all the translations are made, you won't find the phrase ordinary time. Rather, there's a much nicer title for this season. It is called Tempest per Annum, which means time through the year. Nothing ordinary about that. Time through the year. That's actually pretty cool, because it's not, even in English, the ordinary part doesn't mean blah. They named it that because each of the Sundays is named with an ordinal number. The first Sunday, the second, well, there is no first Sunday, but the second Sunday, the third Sunday, the fourth Sunday in ordinary time. If you remember your English class, cardinal numbers are like 1, 2, 3. Ordinal numbers are like first, second, third. So each Sunday in ordinary time is named with an ordinal number. The second Sunday in ordinary time, the third Sunday in ordinary time. So that's why it's called ordinary time in English. In Latin, it's tempus per annum, time through the year. And so that's much better because it kind of takes our bias away from this idea that, like, okay, Christmas and Easter are what's important, and then in between is just, okay, you've got seasons of preparing, like Advent and Lent, but the rest of it, that big chunk there, like, wow, that's a lot of green, just blah, just ordinary, nothing to see here. Oh my gosh, it's summer. Let's go out and party and wait until Advent comes in the fall. Then we can get excited again. Okay, that's not what the church wants us to do at all. Rather, if you think about it, most of life is not lived at some big, huge mountaintop moment experience, like Christmas and Easter. Nobody really has to do a whole lot to tell you, get excited at Christmas and Easter. Okay, it's even built into our culture. We're going to bake cookies. We're going to get little chocolate bunnies at Easter. Everybody kind of celebrates. Jews celebrate Christmas, for goodness sake, because everyone else is, so why not? Well, we had to throw Hanukkah in there, even has very little significance for most of the other Jewish holidays. But somebody's got to celebrate something, and isn't it sad that the Jews can't celebrate Christmas, so let's celebrate Hanukkah. I mean, everybody celebrates Christmas and Easter, so it's not that hard. But in between, this is where I think the real spiritual work goes on. It's the in-between time. And so that's why I think, far from being ordinary, it's the time through the year, the time in between the big moments where the real spiritual life is done. Because let's face it, 90% of our life is spent in that in-between time. There are big events in our life, like Christmas and Easter, but those are few and far between, and most of our life is not on a mountaintop, and it's not down in a valley. It's the level plain in between. And yeah, there are a few peaks and there are valleys, but for the most part, we live on the plain in between, where it's just trucking through, doing what we're supposed to do each day. And I think that's an important kind of lesson, especially if we've maybe experienced some big moments in our lives that aren't such happy moments like Christmas and Easter, like a loss of a child. And we've got these big kind of moments, and it would be easier for us to kind of, maybe organize our life almost around this big moment and let our life get so focused that, every day would kind of be, especially when we're close to the traumatic event, how many days is it since it happened, or today this, and there's always the memories coming up, and we just kind of want to stay and sit on that huge mountain of this traumatic experience. And everyone needs to stay there for as long as you need to stay there, but eventually you got to come down from the big emotionally peaking experience and come back down to the normal level every day, and frankly, somewhat ordinary boredom of life. The mountain kind of peak experience with trauma, it doesn't work quite as well because you can get back up there pretty quick. Even after you're down and level and you think everything's okay, it doesn't always work that way. I found a little graphic. I don't know if some of you have seen this. This helped me. It's an analogy for trauma, using a box and a ball. And in the box, that little red thing is a little button, and that is the pain button. So when there's trauma, there's this pain button, and you press the button, and you feel pain. Well, in this box is this big ball. That's the green ball, and it's bouncing around. And so when the ball is big and it's bouncing around, it keeps hitting the pain button, over and over and over. And this is what it's like, especially near that peak kind of event. So your little ball is taking up the whole box, and it just keeps hitting pain and pain and pain over and over. That's kind of like if this is normal, that this is a spike in our normal well-being. But what happens over time is that the ball gets smaller. So instead of a huge ball that fills the whole box, the ball gets smaller, and so it does bounce around still, but it's hitting the button like less and less. So you learn to move on. Everyone always talk about, move on. I sometimes hate that when I'm going through something traumatic in my life, and someone's like, well, what you need to do is, think about it less. I think, what you need to do now is move on. I just want to punch somebody in the face. Basically, they say that. I mean, to me, that says you're an idiot who's never been through serious trauma to know how to deal with this. What are you supposed to do? Say to me, you know what? I think you need to stop thinking about it. And I'm supposed to be like, that's it. I should stop thinking about it. Stupid. I wish I had thought about not thinking about it. That's what I'll do. I'll just stop thinking about it. Wow, thank you. No, I've got a big ball in my box that keeps hitting my little pain button, and I'd love to stop thinking about it. I want my ball to be smaller, because then I think about it less, because the trauma has gotten smaller, and it's been enough time, enough whatever, but there's nothing you're going to do to make it so that you can lessen that peak of an experience. The ball's just got to get smaller. And the worst thing I think people could do is make it, not only do you feel like crap because you're going through this, your pain button's getting activated, but then some wise guy wants to tell you, oh yeah, and it's basically your fault because what you need to do is move on. Okay, so you guys probably experienced that, but just know that there are some people who get that, and so now you can be one of those people that can help others. Because here's the deal: even when the ball gets small and it hits the button less, that one of the points of this example is when that little ball even hits the pain button, there's still just as much pain as when there was the big huge ball. So, and this is what really gets us sometimes in trauma and grief. You're like, okay, it's been however long. Maybe I should be. Maybe we say it to ourselves. I should be over this, or I should be there. Don't should on yourself. No shooting on yourself. It's a bad idea, because when the little ball, even if it gets the size of a marble, when it hits the pain button, it's still the same pain as if it just happened. And sometimes it just, it's worse because you think, oh, I'm good. Your ball is bouncing around, but it's not hitting the button. And then one day, boom, it hits the button. You're like, where'd that come from? Why am I back there? So I think it's good for us to keep in mind that, all right, when we're at one of those peak kind of experiences where there's a lot of pain and the button's getting hit, we won't be there forever. Okay, we are gonna come down, and most of our life cannot be lived in the light of the peak experience of a pain or a trauma. It's gonna be like that, especially at the beginning. But then as we get further out, there are gonna be peaks. The little ball is going to hit the button, but we go further and further in between, and it's maybe, not as often and frequent. But living that in-between time, that's where the real Christian kind of life is about. And that's why I like in the extraordinary form calendar, or the Latin Mass. Remember Pope Benedict allowed and encouraged really all priests to celebrate not just what we know as the ordinary form today, so the Mass of Paul VI after Vatican II, but to continue to celebrate the Mass of the last 1,500 years, the Latin Mass, as it's sometimes called, to continue to do that. And in the Extraordinary Form calendar, so it's not just its own missal, it's its own calendar, the arrangement of the liturgical year is similar, but that the time that we call ordinary time, not only is it called Tempest per Annum in the traditional liturgy, but the two periods of Tempest per Annum are named the time after Epiphany and the time after Pentecost. So here's the one drawn out. So you see, it's got the two periods of green because we wear green vestments, but notice that the January-February green, it's not ordinary time, part one. It's the season of Epiphany. And then the big chunk of green after Pentecost, that's the season after Pentecost. So right now, for instance, in the Latin Mass calendar, we are in the third week after Epiphany. Doesn't that sound a heck of a lot better than the third week of ordinary time? No, these are the days after Epiphany. Okay, that's exciting. Or the days after Pentecost. That's not ordinary. What does that do? It calls our mind to say, okay, yes, we've had this big event in our life. I was talking about trauma. So yes, we've had that event. And so we can't go back. We can't make it not happen. But we live now in the days after that. And so we live in, liturgically speaking, in the Extraordinary Form calendar, we live in the days after Epiphany. So think about what that means. That means we are people who, like the Magi at Epiphany, they're behind me here, by the way. Okay, those little guys, the kings. Okay, see, I've still got my manger scene up because I'm a liturgy nerd, and one of the things liturgy nerds get to do is that there's a somewhat small T tradition that you can kind of keep manger scenes up until February 2nd, the Feast of the Presentation or Candlemas, because they do it at the Vatican. So why not? Because I put the thing up on Christmas, and my grandpa made that for me. So it's made of little hickory sticks from my great grandmother's actually farm. So that's I don't even know if I can I blow this up somehow for you? I don't know. No, I don't know. Maybe I can find a way to. Oh yeah, hey there. I can kind of blow it up. So there's my little manger scene. Isn't that cute? My grandpa made it for me. And, yeah. So there are the three kings. And, yeah, hay from my great-grandmother's farm. And nice little things. So I leave it up until February 2nd. But think about that the Magi, they encounter Jesus at Epiphany. Huge event. And so much so that in the Gospel of Matthew, it says that they return back to their own home by another road, which is historically accurate. They didn't go back to Jerusalem to Herod. But it also means that their life was changed so that their whole life went by a different road at that point. After you encounter something big like that, there is a sense in which your life changes such that it's never going to be the same. And that's the kind of event that we had at Christmas. After the coming of Jesus into the world, our life can never be the same. And that was true 2,000 years ago in Bethlehem. It's true today. After we encounter Jesus, after Jesus comes into our life can never be the same. We don't go back to, now Christmas is over, so we go back to ordinary. No, we don't go back to anything. We go forward in the days after Epiphany. What will we live now that we've had this encounter with Jesus? And that's not 2,000 years ago. All of us at this Christmas, we encountered Jesus, I hope. How will your life be different because of that? So you see why it's a heck of a lot better to call these the days after Epiphany. It's like the days after I met Jesus. Okay, that's a heck of a lot better than like nothing happening here. Ordinary. Just forget about it till Easter. Lent, that'll be cool because we get fish fries. That'll be nice. Fish fries and bingo. Yeah, I can't wait for that. Well, no, it's like, are you kidding? These are the days after Epiphany. That's exciting. Or to think that the whole church right now is basically living out the mystery of the days after Pentecost. The Holy Spirit has come upon the church, and we live in the days after Pentecost. That's exciting. It means that, yes, there are these peak experiences, but the time that we live in between is where the rubber really meets the road, and we live changed. Not that we want to hang out on the mountain all the time. Oh, we wish it was always Christmas and always Easter. No, we get on with the work of life, and just like no matter what traumas we've been through, life does go on, and there are things to be done, and we continue to grow in our holiness and our journey towards God. But every now and then, we circle back around to the big events. Say, yeah, now that we've lived through the year, per annum, for another year, let's see what Christmas means to me this year. Or let's see what Easter means this year. And boy, I remember this year, especially me and a lot of people, like, boy, we need Christmas this year. Boy, do I need Christmas. We need Jesus to come, because 2020 has been a mess and we need a savior. Okay, this was a different kind of experience of that. And so we're going to continue to go around now. And Easter this year, we're probably still going to be, kind of small. The COVID's not going to be gone by Easter, but it'll be different. We'll be able to have people now. And so this Easter will be a little bit different. We'll be coming out of the tomb a little bit. Each of us is living this, circulating a move a little bit over and over and over, but each time different. Okay, well, I've got 7:45, and none of you have, flipped out, waving at me, so I want to just stop and see kind of if there's some questions here that you would like to ask. Like now. Go ahead. Anybody. Yeah, you're all on mute. Yeah, I was afraid of this.
I like the way you took the liturgical year and kind of took us around that, because I think so many times we look at, just like you mentioned, we talk about ordinary time, and it's really not a great name because of the fact that it isn't ordinary. It's no less special than those other times of the liturgical year that we experience. But I think that the beautiful thing you talked about is going through those times, times in the liturgical year that, whether it's Christmas, whether it's Advent, whatever it is, and it's those times that are real kind of, those are those times and marks in our calendar year that may have a real effect on us. Maybe it is, suffering, dealing with the loss of a loved one at, Christmas, for example. There may be something very special about Christmas, for us and that our child or whatever. And those are things I think that I like the way you brought that to light to help people to understand that, yes, these are things that we're going to have to deal with. The ball analogy was beautiful, and seeing that ball get smaller as you talk about, and maybe not hitting that pain button as often as it used to be. The time is still, I think your point too is just get over it. That whole thing was really very true. There's so many people that tend to do that with us. And so I just like the analogy. I like the way you brought that out tonight and shared that with us. So appreciate that.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks, Kate. And well, sorry, we got an echo there. That analogy of the box really helped me to see how trauma can get less, but also to not beat ourselves up when, maybe it's been long enough. I shouldn't, how can I still feel like so much the pain of that trauma? It's been too long. It should get less and less and less, right? No, sometimes it can be just as traumatic as the moment that it first happened, because even if the little ball is just little, when it hits the little pain button, it can be just as bad as it was the first time that button was ever hit by the big ball. It's just maybe it's hit less. So to not feel like, getting over something is like this nice gradual kind of, no, it's, and to not beat yourself up. Speaking to myself here, too, obviously. Other questions?
I was just going to say, yeah, I like that analogy too. And, talking about the ordinary time and just taking us, I mean, it's so true how the seasons, I always call it the seasons come up, where our loss happened, and then the birthdays and all those events. But to look forward versus back, I think is helpful too, to think of it that way.
Yeah, and notice that as we go forward, it doesn't mean we never think about the past. No, we circle back around. It's just that when we circle around, we're in a different place. And I know I've had some real traumatic moments in my life, and I know that part of my own integration of it, I guess you would call it, is that I'm able to, as I circle back around, each time anniversaries come up, maybe I'm able to appreciate more. Okay, now I can see, well, there is some good that has come. If this hadn't happened, this wouldn't have happened. And, all these things that maybe people try to tell us when things first happen. Well, look on the good. Look at the good. When you're traumatized, you're just too much in the pain to look at the good. I mean, you can tell yourself, oh, yeah, well, I know God still loves me, and and this and that, and we can fill our minds with truth, but they can seem almost like kind of platitudes when all you can feel is emotional sort of pain. But as we go around again, sometimes we can actually start to look and say, okay, yeah, the pain is less, the ball's getting smaller, so I can kind of see, oh, well, look at this happened, and then you can start to appreciate it. But that's a sign that we're healing. You can't force it to make that happen. And I guess what I can kind of see that when people that care about us say, I think you should stop thinking about it, or I think you should move on, or what they're really saying is that they wish we could be in a place where this pain wasn't hurting us. That's how I try to hear it. After I want to punch them in the face, I try to think like, yeah, okay, this person said this really stupid, insensitive thing because they actually love me. And what they're really trying to say is, I wish you weren't hurting. But it comes out like, well, you should just stop thinking about it is what you should do. What they really mean to say is, I wish you were healed in a way that you weren't in so much pain having to think about this. That's what they would say if they could say it right. But they just don't quite know how to say it. So that's at least how I kind of give people a break sometimes when they make comments that don't quite make sense or are hurtful a little bit.
Anybody else have anything for Father Shawn?
Free priest. Real live free priest. Well, oh, there you go.
I just want to say thank you. I made notes all along the line here, things that just reached home to me so much, and I love that thought, time throughout the year. That's just kind of our life, time throughout the year too. And you've helped me in my thinking and the way I look at it through my heart too. And I love your last approach there about, instead of saying move on, that they're really trying to help you, because we know that knife when they say move on. So you've given me a whole new outlook on that, and thank you so much, Father. Thank you for everything you said tonight.
Oh, well, thanks, Trish. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm passing on the fruit of some of my own experience because, I'm as a priest, I like to help people and particularly try to bring God's healing and mercy to people. And I want people to be able to be free from pain and suffering. But, God does too, and yet he still allows it. And that's a bit of the mystery. God, we know, could take away all the pain and suffering. And those questions about why did God allow this to happen? And boy, don't we all go through that. And hey, priests don't have any magic answer to this. I put on my theologian hat. Put on my theologian hat, literally, and I can tell you that, the answer is God allows free will, and so God could have made a perfect world with no suffering, but then there wouldn't be any free will, and if there's no free will, we can't really love God, And so the only way we can love God is if he makes us free. And if we're free, then the world isn't determined. And that means that bad things can happen to good people. And as a result of that, all the suffering in the world exists because of the fall. And in the end, everything will be made well. And God doesn't allow more suffering than we can handle. And so in heaven, all will be made well because God cannot be outdone in generosity, and good triumphs over evil. That's blah. Doesn't mean anything when you just lost your kid. I mean, like, yeah, I still all know that up here, but forget that. I just want my kid back, or my friend that died, or that I lost this relationship that was important. So, yeah, you can't talk yourself into feeling better. I mean, a little bit. There's a whole mind over mood kind of thing in psychology right now. That there's something to it. If all we go to are negative thoughts and never do anything to try to at least acknowledge good, then we can get into kind of a downward spiral. And so, there are some things we can do, but the worst thing you can do is feel like you're down and feeling miserable, and someone comes and tells you, well, it's your fault, because basically you got to get over this is what you got to do. Give me a break. So I'm sorry if anyone has ever said that to you. Just remember, they care. They love you, and that's why they're saying that. Yeah.
All right. Father, thank you so much. Anybody else have any comments or questions before we wrap up? Once we get past COVID, I'd love to get Father Shawn back in a live setting with us, because he just always does a great job, and love his sense of humor and everything else that goes along with it. So, anybody else have anything before we wrap up tonight? I am very excited to see my good friend Deacon Bill Graveman joining us tonight. Deacon Bill is going to be our speaker next month. And for those of you who may or may not know, he's going to talk about something so very important. He's addressed this at one point. Some of you were at that particular event. We talked about the dangers of mediums and psychics, and as parents who've lost children, it's kind of a natural thing for us to want to know where our kids are and how they're doing. But by the same token, what ends up tending to happen in those situations is we are kind of looking for answers in the wrong places. Bill is going to address that. He's part of the deliverance ministry, but Bill has spoken before. Some of you experienced Bill's visit with us when I think that was at, if I remember right, Queen of the Holy Rosary, Pat Brown's parish, and we met there, and Bill spoke, and it was fantastic information. And so I just want to encourage you to next month to make sure you join us. It's always the last Tuesday of the month. And we're going to do it Zoom. I don't know. We're still kind of playing it by ear. We may do live too, but we will probably do Zoom for sure. And then of course, let Bill really kind of take off and talk about the importance of understanding that. It's something that's so, it's very, easy to get caught up in those things, and we have to be very, very careful. So. Bill will speak to that next month in our meeting. So, Bill, great to see you tonight. Thank you again for coming out. And we had a lot of people. Thank you to everyone in the group that have offered prayers and comments about losing my brother Dan to COVID here in December. And Bill, thank you for coming out for the funeral and being part of that with some of the deacon cohort. And that meant a lot to me. It really did. So. Thank you all for the prayers and the thoughts, and fortunately just got over COVID myself after a couple of weeks, and don't wish it on anybody, but we move forward now and just know that you got to continue to trust in God, and so just so thankful. And Father, if you wouldn't mind maybe closing with a prayer and giving us your blessing.
Sure. And
unless anybody else has any other questions.
I just have one quick thing.
Yes.
I'll just show you this.
Oh, yes.
No,
Thank you,
it's okay.
Kelly. I'm almost
You can read it
forgetting.
next time. This is the leaven, and kind of here's our article. So it's a whole big page. So you can read the story about the green rocks in the leaven. But it's a a neat inspirational story.
Awesome.
Kind of like Father said, something good came out of something really tragic. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, we definitely want to talk about that too. So.
Yeah, and I will ask your prayers. I'm going on my annual retreat tomorrow, so I am driving out to the mountains because I need some mountains. I go to the mountains to find God. I find God everywhere, but mountains are kind of nice. So I'm going to go on retreat, and some of you might be aware of my online ministry, Shawn the Baptist. My name is Shawn, which is the Irish version of John, and so my patron saint is John the Baptist, and that makes me Shawn the Baptist. And no, I've never been a Baptist. I've always been Catholic, but I am Shawn the Baptist. So if you go to my website, shawnthebaptist.org, that's SHAWN, thebaptist.org, I have 3 podcasts. I podcast my homilies from each Sunday for the last 10 years. And then I have a daily podcast, about 5 minutes every morning, just a spiritual reflection, a lot of times on the readings of the Mass or the Saint of the Day. You can get that podcast, and then every Wednesday night at 6:30, I do a live show on Facebook. So if you go to shawnthebaptist.org, there's a big button at the top for Facebook. You can just click on Facebook. I'm live 6:30, but when that's over, I put it on YouTube. So you can get the morning message on YouTube. You can get Shawn the Baptist live on YouTube. Go to shawnthebaptist.org, .org, not .com, and you can click on all my social media. Please follow me. Please like me. I'd really like it if you like me. Yeah, I'm on Twitter, everything. Go check it out on shawnthebaptist.org, and I'd be happy to include you in my daily prayers as the morning message goes out to start your day well, and you can share that and pass it along. And if you've got questions, please join me on Wednesdays at 6:30. Speaking of which, I'm going on retreat tomorrow, so I will not be live tomorrow. And I was wondering, I recorded our little session tonight. Is it okay if I share that as this week's Shawn the Baptist live, our little talk tonight? Okay. So you guys can be famous. You'll be the Shawn the Baptist live show tomorrow night, not live. This episode previously recorded. All right, well, it was great to be with you all. I'll end with a little blessing and prayer here. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Jesus, we thank you that you chose to come among us, not just as God, as you've always been with your people. You've been in your creation from the beginning, but you chose to come to us in the most intimate way possible. You became one of us, and not just a perfect one of us, but you came as a little baby, as a little tiny zygote, one cell in the womb of Mary, your mother, and grew into an embryo and a fetus, and you were born and you grew, and you experienced grief and loss all the time. The death of your friend Lazarus. You saw the hurt and the pain and suffering of all your disciples, and you who are God and so good, never want to see anyone suffer, and yet you came to show us that although you love us, You love us enough to allow us to suffer in ways that are good for our eternal salvation. We pray through our Blessed Mother Mary and her intercession that as we go through this valley of tears, we may arrive at our heavenly homeland where, Mary, you are Queen and seated at the right hand of Jesus. Help us to not despair, to lose hope as we go through the year, and not just through this year, but through the years of our life, in between those big spiritual powerful experience where we know you're present and we love it, or when we're in the deep valley and we wonder where you're at. Help us to go through the ordinary times, the time through the year, that we might arrive at the end of time safely with you. And we bless all those who are joining our group tonight in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Go with God, all vaya con Dios. Great to be with you, and maybe we'll be together again.